go okay?
Oh, yeah. Piece of cake.
Is your undercover done?
He's dead, all right.
Hey everybody, welcome to What the Flick. Tim Grierson, Ben Mankiewicz, Alonso Duralde, talking about The Infiltrator, another true story with Bryan Cranston. This seems to be his thing these days.
Was Breaking Brad real?
Not break, but everything since then. The Trumbo and LBJ, and now
Trumbo,
this.
LBJ,
So
right,
you know,
yeah. This was though. This is a story not known.
not so much. No. Tell us about it, Ben.
Oh, all right, sure. This is the story of Bob, who
Mazur.
Mazur, thank you. And he is a customs agent and an undercover customs agent. And as the movie begins, he comes off one case and heads into another, where he serves as the money launderer for Pablo Escobar's drug ring, and in the process ropes in the Bank of Credit and Commerce International, BCCI, and gets involved in sort of one of the biggest undercover operations of his era, of the era, but in the process perhaps becomes too connected to the people who he befriends as part of the undercover operation, losing touch with his family in the process.
Listen up. Washington wants to make the biggest bust in U.S. history, Pablo Escobar, and his main distributor, Roberto Alcaino.
Are you kidding me?
Responsible for 80% of the product flooding into the country.
Promise me this is the last one.
Couple of team changes. Mazur, you're with EBREU.
That dude's nuts. I know these people. You gotta play with them. You gotta drink with them. You gotta do whatever you gotta do, man.
Meet your soon-to-be wife.
Damn, I need a fiancé.
How many undercovers has she done?
It's her first one, but she was at the top of her class.
You don't have to worry about me.
I'm a big girl.
One wrong word,
Here we go.
one slip. My friends, welcome to the United States.
I got you on a stranglehold, baby, and then I crossed your blood.
This was an audition. You got the part.
So my good friend Kurt Holman, who is a film critic in Atlanta, his line about Trumbo was that it felt like one of those HBO movies in the 90s before they were really good at doing them.
That's a great analysis of Trumbo.
That's what I think is this movie, is that. This movie to me feels like they've got this awesome true story and then they tell it in a way that feels like every other drug movie we've ever seen.
Maybe I just haven't seen enough drug movies. Because and I didn't love this, but I clearly liked it better than you got. I just was into it. I got into it while recognizing every 7 or 8 minutes that there was something not quite perfect.
Like there are two long tracking shots accompanied by like a pop standard, which is sort of like the Scorsese moments, and then I was kind of bored for a good chunk of this, which surprised me because you would think with, you know, the high stakes and glamour stuff. Well, that was a part of it. I think I didn't feel stakes. I didn't feel like Bryan Cranston or the other agents who were played by John Leguizamo and
Diane Kruger.
Diane Kruger were like in real danger.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't bored watching it, but I had that almost equally not great sensation, which is I should be enjoying this more than I'm watching it. I mean, Brad Furman's the director, and
he did Lincoln Lawyer.
He did Runner after that, which was really terrible.
Oh God, I hated Runner.
Yeah, I mean, and I like Lincoln Lawyer better than this, but I think that in general, Furman kind of has, I mean, you mentioned HBO. To me, this is the TNT, I'm going to see it at 2 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon kind of movie.
Right.
It's perfectly okay, but it's just kind of, it's solid, but it never gets better. And this is the potential I feel like it should have. I think Cranston's, I know people have kind of, to my mind, kind of given it a pass because Cranston is very good in this movie. But my problem is I feel like this is the same arc that he did in Breaking Bad, where he's playing a character who's somewhat mild-mannered, who family man who eventually learns, oh, I actually have this darker side to me, and I can actually execute this type of personality, and trying to kind of meld those two personalities. But Breaking Bad had so many seasons to kind of develop that character, and to me, this one falls into the Donnie Darko school of I don't know which person.
Donnie Brasco.
Or Donnie No,
That
you
took
must
me
have
a
not seen
second.
the director's cut of Donnie
No,
Darko.
you're right.
There's a whole
That's what it is. Yes.
Donnie Brasco version.
That's I think it's just different than the Breaking Bad character because that was like a descent into, again, with, whatever it was, 90 episodes to play with that obviously can do much more. But he never stopped being a good guy to me, but it was like you saw a good guy learning that he could very effectively put on a front.
Yeah, the best scene in this movie, he's like having dinner with the wife, and then one of the like drug guys shows up, and he immediately has to become,
to pretend it's not the wife.
Criminal guy.
And it was really so I felt stakes. I don't know if I felt overall stakes, like because you don't care whether they get Pablo Escobar, and that they do, but not from this, or I don't even remember.
Well, yeah, and again, and you can tell a historical movie where we know how it's going to end and still make us care about how they get there.
So no question. But I felt serious because I felt serious tension in isolated moments throughout. I mean, the scene in the disco toward the end where the actress, his pretend wife,
Diane Kruger,
where Diane Kruger and Bryan Cranston sort of are drawn together, at least emotionally in some way. And then early on, when he's hiding out in the house and the guys come home early, and I felt tension there. And a couple other moments where I thought, because I don't know who's going to die. I mean, you figure Cranston probably not going to die before the end of the movie, but he might die at the end of the movie. I don't know. I don't know. I didn't know the story well enough, and he does. No, you don't know who's. So I felt tension in various parts, and I just thought it was cool. But there's one thing I just wanted to touch on before there were cool parts of it, right? But still, you have this sense that it's not quite tense enough, and you're not quite drawn in enough.
Right.
And I think one of the problems are the scenes at the government scenes, the sending him on his way. Those all lacked completion. They lacked a sense of fullness for those other characters. And I think it marks like the third straight time that this wonderful actress, Amy Ryan, is given like a role of like that typically, stereotypically, would go to the overweight black guy in the 70s and 80s.
Right, the M. Emmett Walsh role of like, let me explain what's happening and you go there.
And he has there's nothing complicated to him. And so it's like in Bridge of Spies, she didn't have anything really to do of merit. And then in this Central Intelligence, she plays the same thing where they just come in and they turn on the video, they run the little movie where they go, okay, here's this operation, this is Pablo Escobar, this is number 2 guy, and she runs it. It's 27 seconds long. And she's like, be safe out there.
And she's finding every drop of dramatic anything she can get out of it. She's that good of an actress, but there's nothing. Yeah, you're right.
Right. And also, I'm going to guess that the federal government was ahead of most other places on sort of integration and getting women involved and giving, black staffers meaningful jobs. But I don't know that, and this is set in like the late 70s. 85 maybe, but that the head of the customs, that agency would be a woman, and she seemed... There was a little Carrie Russell from The Americans to me, like everybody else is in period, but she kind of...
Oh, no, there's a lot of that in this movie where the leads have very kind of soft period details, and you have to look at like the strippers and the background people to get hardcore 1985. I mean, this movie is set 2 years after Scarface came out.
Right.
And it is a very 21st century 1985.
And
they could go a lot further with
this
that.
is set in Tampa, so it's also the same location, basically. I mean, the thing that Ben actually touched on, I want to talk about a little bit more. To me, there's a lack of sophistication. In terms of when people talk about this being like the golden age of television and whatever, like one of the things that television does really well is it sort of like digs in and gives you a sense of like place. In this movie, I just feel like in all the scenes with Amy Ryan or anything when Bryan Cranston has to go back to his people and talk, there's nothing about any of that that feels very sophisticated. And instead what they do is they kind of do what I consider sort of a glib, knee-jerk kind of like, well, the American government's war on drugs. Am I right? That was terrible. There's nothing.
Put a "Just Say No" ad on TV in the background.
There's a lot of like really kind of easy things like that, and I feel like it extends beyond to. I think Benjamin Bratt is quite good as sort of Cranston's liaison to the cartel, but even that.
Cartel, that's the word I couldn't think of each time I've spoken here. I was like, what? There's a word everyone uses. This organization, this group is a bunch of drug dealers that together in an organizational
cartel.
Yeah.
But it's like he's like, Bratt plays the liaison. But even like that relationship is kind of exactly the way that type of thing normally works.
In these movies,
He is the quote-unquote bad guy, essentially, but he has a code of ethics that he follows. He's a very sophisticated bad guy. And even the relationship that he has with Cranston feels like a lot of other kind of drug movies I've seen. And even the relationship between him and Diane Kruger kind of feels the same way, where you kind of sense the sexual tension. I actually like the rapport that the two of them have, but there's still kind of this sense of, are they going to cross that line? Are they going to fall in love with each other? Even that, as well as the two of them, I think, kind of execute that. I feel like, even though this is based on a true story, I've seen this before.
Yeah.
I've seen this before.
And we've seen the wife who's like, oh, do you have to go bust the drug cartel, honey? Can't you stay home and be safe? Like,
true, but there were some, but her presence in that restaurant scene and her anger a couple of times, to me, made that sort of a little bit different, because it didn't feel like I liked her, and I liked his wrestling with it. I did. I thought that was all good. And I liked the Benjamin Bratt stuff. Now, again, maybe I'm not thinking of the right movies, and maybe we have seen this before, but they developed an actual friendship. And so somehow, to me, and why I end up giving it a higher score, is those cliches they didn't land as cliches for me for as much stuff, whereas the Amy Ryan back at the office stuff was...
It's tough. And I agree with you, Ben. I think that club scene is one of the best scenes. I actually didn't like the argument at the restaurant thing, but I think that club scene is that's like one of the great big surprises, I feel like, in the movie.
So, numbers, please.
I gave it a 6.7. I think it's worth seeing, but I think, but I called right after. I talked to my wife right afterwards. She like it, and I was like, "Hey, you're on a plane, or you're in a hotel in 4 months?" Absolutely, which I think is a higher standard than 2 p.m. on TNT, which is obviously a fantastic network.
I give it a 5.5. It's very solid, but it just never excited me.
Yeah, I go straight 5. It was there, and it does some things right, but it just was, I will not remember this movie in 2 weeks.
How did Pablo, there's a scene where he's undercover, but he goes home sometimes. That was like one of the things that was lack sophistication. So just in our last 30 seconds. So there's a scene where he gets a threat in the mail. Like, how did Pablo Escobar know where he really
No, because he sends it to the office. We see him get it at the shipping office as the front company, and but he brings it home. Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of delineation between I'm undercover, I'm not undercover. This movie's very kind of wobbly.
I wasn't paying attention. That's right. He went to the mailbox.
But that's a dumb scene too. Like he wouldn't have brought that home. It didn't make any sense.
No, that was forced to get.
That would have definitely not been in Donnie Darko.
Hell no. Richard Kelly would know better.
Of course not.
All right. Thank you for watching.